The wedding drums were already beating when the driver grabbed Chick's arm and whispered the words that would shatter everything. "If you want to live, get in the boot, now." Chick stared at the old man, his white agbada crisp and new, his heart pounding beneath the embroidered cloth. This was supposed to be the happiest morning of his life. The entire village of Umudike was waiting. His bride Adana was already at the ceremony ground. The elders had blessed the union. Everything was perfect. "Musa, what are you talking about?" Chick tried to laugh, but the driver's face stopped him cold. Musa's weathered hands were shaking. His eyes, normally calm and steady, were wild with fear. "I watched them bury my brother in a wedding cloth 20 years ago," he said, his voice breaking. "Please, sir, trust me this once. Get in the boot, or you will not see another sunrise." The drums grew louder in the distance, celebratory, joyful, deceptive. Chick's best friend Emeka appeared at the compound gate, smiling too widely. "Brother, the elders are asking for you. We need to leave now. Everything is ready." Something in Emeka's voice felt wrong, too eager, too rehearsed. Musa pulled Chick closer, his grip desperate. "That man is not your friend," he hissed. "Get in the boot, or ask him why he helped choose your wedding date." The world tilted. Chike looked between Emeka's approaching figure and Musa's terrified eyes. Every instinct screamed confusion, but something deeper, older, whispered danger. "I'll explain everything," Musa said, "but only if you're alive to hear it." Chick made a choice that felt like madness. He climbed into the boot of the Mercedes. The last thing he saw before darkness swallowed him was Emeka's smile faltering, just for a moment, into something that looked like guilt. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. The boot was hot and suffocating. Chick's expensive agbada bunched around him, the fabric meant for celebration now feeling like a burial shroud. He could hear Musa above, speaking calmly to Emeka. "The groom says he needs a moment alone to prepare his mind," Musa said. "Tradition, you know. He asked me to drive him around the village once before we arrive, for blessings." "That's not part of the plan," Emeka said sharply. Then, softer, more controlled, "I mean, the elders are waiting. We have a specific time." "The groom insists," Musa interrupted. "Unless you want to explain to everyone why you're refusing Amani's last request before marriage." There was a terrible pause. Then Emeka laughed, but it sounded hollow. "Of course, take your time, but don't be late. The ceremony must begin before noon." The car door slammed. The engine started. Through the crack in the boot, Chick watched his compound disappear. They didn't drive toward the ceremony ground. They drove away from it. Chick's phone buzzed in his pocket. 12 missed calls from Adana, 5 from his mother, 23 from Emeka. He wanted to answer, wanted to scream that this was insane, that he was hiding in the boot of his own car on his wedding day like a criminal. But Musa's words echoed. "My brother died in a wedding cloth." The car slowed. Musa's phone rang. The driver's voice changed, became formal, almost ceremonial. "Yes, elder. The package is secured." "No, he suspects nothing. The sacrifice will arrive before noon, as promised." "Yes, at the old family compound. Everything is prepared." Chicky's blood turned to ice. "Sacrifice?" The car stopped. Musa whispered to the boot, "Stay silent. Stay hidden. Watch everything. Then you'll understand why I betrayed my employers to save you." Footsteps crunched on gravel. Voices rose and fell. Chick pressed his eye to the crack in the boot, and what he saw destroyed him. There was no wedding decoration here. No colorful wrappers, no dancing, no joy. Instead, the old Nosu family compound was draped in black cloth. Calabashes filled with dark liquid sat in a circle. Strange symbols marked the ground in white chalk, and in the center stood Adana. His bride wore a wedding dress, but her face was blank, emotionless. Beside her stood Emeka, no longer smiling, holding a ceremonial staff. Around them, 12 elders sat in a semicircle, their faces painted with white clay. The eldest stood, his voice carried like thunder. The covenant is nearly complete. 40 years ago, this family promised the ancestors a life for prosperity. They gave us wealth, power, influence in every corner of this region, but debts must be paid in blood. Chik's grandmother had been from the Nosu family. He'd always been proud of that connection, proud of the inheritance, the land, the success that followed him everywhere. Now he understood the price. The chosen one believes he comes for marriage, the elder continued. He believes the woman loves him. He believes his friend celebrates with him. This willing innocence makes the sacrifice pure. A successful man, beloved by the village, walking into death with a smile. That is what the ancestors demand. Adana spoke for the first time, her voice barely a whisper. Must it be him? Can we not choose another? The elder's response was sharp as a blade. You agreed to this when you accepted his proposal. Your family's prosperity depends on this union. You were chosen because he would never suspect you. Love is the sweetest trap. I didn't know I would. Adana's voice cracked. I didn't know I would actually care for him. Emeka laughed bitterly. Care? You've known him 3 months. I've been his brother for 15 years, and where has it gotten me? He has everything, the business, the respect, the future I was supposed to have. This isn't just tradition, sister. This is justice. Sister. The word hits Chik like a physical blow. Emeka and Adana were siblings. Everything, every introduction, every coincidence had been orchestrated. By sunset, the elder said, he will be buried as a husband and reborn as an offering. The wedding guests are already gathering. Unknowing mourners at a funeral dressed as celebration. When he does not arrive, we will say he ran away, shaming his family. They will bury an empty casket. No one will search for a coward. If you're still watching up to now, type I'm still here in the comment section. Chik's hands trembled against the metal of the boot. His success, his confidence, his trust in people, all of it had made him the perfect victim. He thought of his mother's face when she'd blessed this union. His sister's excitement helping him prepare. The whole village celebrating what they thought was love. It was a funeral march, and he was the corpse who didn't know he was dead. Musa's voice cut through his spiral of horror, speaking to the elders. The driver has returned. The groom grows impatient. Should I bring him now? Wait outside, the elder commanded. We must complete the preparation. When the sun reaches its peak, bring him to the ceremonial entrance. Make sure he sees nothing but wedding decoration until he crosses the threshold. The innocence must remain intact. Musa bowed and returned to the car. He drove a short distance away, then stopped. The boot clicked open. Chik climbed out, gasping for air, his wedding clothes drenched in sweat. How did you know? He whispered. Musa's eyes were wet. Because I was the driver 20 years ago when they took my brother. They told me it was an elopement, that he was running away with his bride for a secret ceremony. I drove him to the same compound. I heard his screams when he realized the truth. But by then, the ritual had begun. I was too afraid to speak, too afraid to save him. Why help me now? Because I've spent 20 years as their driver, watching, waiting for another sacrifice. When they hired me for your wedding, I knew. I recognized the same pattern, the rushed courtship, the insistent elders, the best friend too involved in every detail. I swore I wouldn't stay silent again. Chike looked back toward the compound. What happens if I run, if I just disappear? The ritual only works if you arrive willingly, Musa explained. If you come as a happy groom, trusting and innocent, fear breaks the covenant, disappearance voids it, but they will haunt you. Your family will be shamed. Your mother might never recover from the scandal. And if I confront them publicly with witnesses, Musa's face hardened. Then the secret dies, the power dies, but you risk their desperation. Corner tradition becomes violence. Chick straightened his agbada, his hands stopped shaking. Then we go back, but not as they expect. 20 minutes later, the wedding ground at the village center was packed with guests. His mother sat in the place of honor, beaming. His sister adjusted flowers. 300 people waited for a ceremony that was supposed to be a murder. The drums announced the groom's arrival, but Chick didn't enter from the ceremonial path. He walked straight through the crowd, how his face terrible with knowledge. Musa beside him carrying a phone with the recording of everything they'd witnessed. The elders froze. Emika's face went white. Adana, standing at the altar in her wedding dress, met his eyes, and tears began to fall. Good people of Umudike, Chick's voice rang out, silencing the drums. You came here for a wedding, but I came here to bury a lie. He told them everything, the covenant, the sacrifice, the old compound with its black cloth and blood calabashes. Musa played the recording, the elders' voices condemning themselves with their own words. The crowd erupted. Shock became rage. Parents grabbed their children. Young men advanced on the elders with questions that sounded like accusations. Emeka tried to run, but Chike's true friends, the ones who'd known him since childhood, blocked his path. Brother, one of them spat. You called him brother while planning his murder? Adana collapsed to her knees, her wedding dress pulling around her like spilled milk. I'm sorry, she sobbed. I'm so sorry. They said it was just tradition. They said you'd never know, that you'd pass peacefully in your sleep during the ceremony, that it was an honor. An honor. Chick's mother's voice cut through everything. She stood, trembling with fury. You are going to kill my son and call it honor? The eldest elder tried to speak, tried to invoke tradition and ancestry and debts owed to the land, but his voice found no purchase. The young people shouted him down. The women, mothers and sisters and daughters formed a wall between him and escape. This isn't tradition, someone yelled. This is mother hiding in old cloth. The village head, who had not been part of the conspiracy, called for the police. The elders scattered like shadows at sunrise, their power evaporating the moment secrecy died. Chike stood in the center of it all, alive but hollowed out. Everything he'd believed about love, friendship, community, it was all infected now with doubt. Adana approached him slowly, her eyes swollen. I know you'll never forgive me, but you should know, somewhere in these 3 months, I stopped pretending. What I felt for you became real. That's why I hesitated. That's why I asked if there was another way. But you didn't stop it, Chick said quietly. You cared, but not enough to save me. She had no answer to that. There was no answer to that. Emeka was dragged past by angry villagers. He spat at Chick's feet. You always win. Even when you're supposed to die, you win. The ancestors chose wrong. It should have been you in the ground and me standing here. Chick looked at the man he'd called brother and felt nothing but pity. I lost today too, he said. I just lost things you can't bury. As the sun set over Umudike, Chike walked away from the village square. His mother called after him, but he couldn't stop. Not yet. He needed air, space, silence. Musa waited by the car, and for a long moment, neither man spoke. Thank you, Chike finally said. For your brother. For me. Musa nodded. Drive carefully, sir. The world has more traps than this one. The old man turned and walked into the gathering darkness, disappearing the way guardians do when their purpose is complete. Chike stood alone in his wedding agbada, surrounded by the ruins of a celebration that had never been real. In the distance, he could hear his village arguing, reforming, questioning everything they'd accepted without thought. Not every wedding is about love, he thought. Some are about debts the living never agreed to pay. And silence, he now knew, is often the sharpest knife, the one that cuts deepest because you never see it coming, the one wielded by people who smile while they sharpen the blade. Tradition without conscience becomes cruelty, and trust without wisdom becomes a grave you dig with your own hope. He would rebuild, he would heal, but he would never again mistake convenience for destiny or assume that love couldn't hide murder in its smile. The drums had finally stopped beating. In their absence, Chike heard something he'd never noticed before. The sound of his own heartbeat, steady and strong, the rhythm of a man who'd been sentenced to death and chosen to live anyway. That was enough. For now, that was enough. If this story moved you, if it made you think about the traditions you follow without question, then let us know in the comments. Share your thoughts, your own experiences with betrayal or narrow escapes. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more African folk tales that reveal the hidden truths we carry in our cultures. Because every story we tell is a warning, a lesson, and a light in the darkness. Remember, not everything wrapped in tradition deserves your trust. And sometimes, the person who saves your life is the one you never expected to care.